Welcome to Lady E's Dark Tales, my precious cups. I'm Mistress Moan, and tonight we're diving into something that's been crawling across social media feeds like a particularly persistent horror movie sequel. You've seen them clipped to designer bags, hoarded in bedroom collections, and selling for more than most people's rent. Those wide-eyed, sharp-toothed little creatures called Labubu dolls. Now, before you roll your eyes and think this is just another viral toy story, let me tell you something, darlings. I've been watching people obsess over these things for months now, and there's something about the pattern that feels familiar, like watching the same horror movie play out in real life over and over again. Some trends fade quietly, others dig their claws in deep and don't let go. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 stories that'll make you think twice before adding one of those grinning little monsters to your collection. Let me tell you about Aaliyah Thompson, a college junior who thought she'd beaten the system. Poor thing discovered that some bargains come with strings attached. Aaliyah was scrolling through TikTok during her break at the campus Starbucks when another Labubu unboxing video popped up. Some influencer crying happy tears over a limited edition white one, bragging about dropping $400 like it was pocket change. Aaliyah actually laughed out loud. She was living off expired energy drinks and ramen packets, making minimum wage while watching people treat overpriced plush toys like investment portfolios. Classic modern horror setup, darlings. Person with nothing watches people with everything, and desperation starts whispering bad ideas. Later that day, she wandered into a Goodwill on impulse, retail therapy for the financially challenged, as she called it. That's when she spotted it, sitting on a cluttered shelf between dusty Tupperware and mismatched coffee mugs. A white Labubu, still sealed in its original packaging, still sporting that signature sharp-toothed grin. Now, I've seen enough horror films to know that finding exactly what you want in the last place you'd expect it is never a good sign. But Aaliyah, she grabbed that box like she'd won the lottery. The packaging looked perfect. QR code scanned clean. Stitching was legitimate. Even the security hologram was intact. Price tag read $12. 12. For something worth hundreds on the resale market. Here's where a smart person might have asked themselves why nobody else had noticed this gold mine. But desperation has a way of drowning out common sense, my precious cubs. The checkout clerk was ancient, wearing a faded name tag that simply read, Betty. She smiled at Aaliyah and said something about how some things don't like being alone too long. Aaliyah just laughed nervously, tapped her card, and practically ran out of there. Back in her dorm room, she set up her phone to document the unboxing. This was going to be her viral moment, darlings. Her chance to show off a $400 score for $12. She sliced open the seal and lifted the doll from its packaging. The fur felt warm. Not room temperature warm, body temperature warm. She paused, running her fingers through the white fur again. Still warm, like it had been sitting in someone's hands for hours. That night, she woke up at exactly 3:08 a.m. with pressure on her chest. Not pain, just weight, like something small but dense was sitting on her ribs. The doll sat on her nightstand where she'd left it. Same position, same expression, but something felt different. Like it knew she was awake. The next day brought a series of small disasters. She failed a quiz she'd studied for, spilled coffee all over her laptop, and got a parking ticket despite feeding the meter. Little things, the kind that could happen to anyone having a bad day. Then her car got rear-ended by a black SUV that disappeared before she could get the license plate. That night, she flipped the doll around to face the wall before going to sleep. At 3:08 a.m., she woke up again. Same pressure, same feeling of being watched. The doll was facing her. closer to the edge of the nightstand than before. Classic horror movie escalation there, darlings. The kind where you're screaming at the character to just get rid of the obviously cursed object. Aaliyah threw it in the dumpster the next morning. Problem solved, right? Wrong. It was back on her nightstand that evening. She tried again. Dumpster. Gone. Back the next day. So she burned it in a metal trash can behind the dining hall, watched the plastic warp and the fur catch fire, smelled that awful synthetic smoke. It reappeared the following morning, unburned, clean, waiting. When she buried it in the woods behind campus and marked the tree with a ribbon, she thought she'd finally won. The next morning, the doll sat on her desk with the ribbon tied around its neck like a tiny noose. That's when she drove back to the Goodwill in full panic mode. The girl at checkout looked at her like she'd lost her mind. According to the employee, they never had any Labubu dolls in the store for resale, but Aaliyah told her she bought it from that store from an older lady. Of course, the clerk had no idea what she was talking about. The only people working the previous Saturday were her and someone named Sarah. No Betty, no ancient clerk with cryptic warnings. Aaliyah left the doll anyway, begging them to keep it, and drove 3 towns over to stay with a friend. She woke up the next morning to find it tucked neatly into her overnight bag. That week, everything in her life started collapsing like a house of cards in a horror movie finale. Failed exams, lost financial aid, roommate moved out without explanation. Her phone kept crashing, deleting important contacts and messages. Campus security found her 3 days later after wellness complaints about strange smells coming from her room. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at the white Labubu cradled in her lap. Breathing, but not blinking. Alive, but not entirely present. The walls were covered in symbols scratched into the paint. Not carved with tools, darlings. Carved with fingernails based on the blood evidence. Aaliyah survived, technically, but she never returned to school. Last I heard, she was living with family and didn't speak much about collectibles anymore. Now let me tell you about Samantha Thompson, a mother who learned that sometimes love opens doors you can't close. Samantha had counted her cash 3 times before making the decision. $240 in crumpled bills, money that should have gone to groceries or the overdue electric bill. But her 16-year-old daughter Harley's birthday was coming up, and the girl had been obsessing over Labubu dolls for months. They were everywhere online. Celebrities carrying them, teenagers crying over unboxings, influencers treating them like luxury accessories. Samantha didn't understand the appeal, but she understood the look in her daughter's eyes when those videos played. When she spotted a toy vendor outside the mall, she gave in to maternal guilt and bought a sealed mystery box. The vendor barely looked up when he handed over the box, muttering something about her being lucky because they'd been moving fast. The packaging was smaller than expected, with a little window where sleepy eyes peeked through the plastic. Harley's reaction made every penny worth it, darlings. Pure joy when she opened that box and found a mint blue Labubu with heavy-lidded eyes and a sleepy grin. She named it Blue instantly. From that moment on, Harley and Blue were inseparable. The doll went to school, to dinner, to bed. At 16, Harley had been moody and distant for years, but this little thing brought back her smile. Then came the conversations. It started on the 3rd night. Samantha was washing dishes when she heard Harley chatting in her room. Normal enough, until she noticed the pauses. Long gaps like someone was responding. Then laughter. Then whispers. When Samantha called out asking who she was talking to, Harley replied casually that she was just planning tomorrow with Blue, Within days, Harley was having full conversations at all hours. Samantha would pass her daughter's room and hear her voice rising and falling in actual dialogue, with pauses and interruptions like a phone call, but there was never a second voice clear enough to identify. Harley's behavior shifted too. She stopped eating with the family, stopped showering regularly, stopped responding to texts from friends. She clutched Blue like a security blanket, panicking if she left it in another room for even a few minutes. 2 weeks in, Samantha overheard something that made her blood freeze. She was walking past Harley's room when she heard 2 distinct voices. One was definitely her daughter. The other was lower, rougher, like someone speaking through a broken radio. She peeked through the cracked door and saw Harley sitting cross-legged on the floor with Blue in her lap. Surrounding them were notebooks filled with spirals and symbols that seemed to shift slightly when you tried to focus on them. Classic horror movie moment, my precious cubs. The kind where the parent realizes something has gone very, very wrong. When Samantha asked who she'd been talking to, Harley looked genuinely confused and insisted it was just Blue. The breaking point came when Samantha found her daughter in the kitchen at 2:13 a.m., standing at the counter with a knife in one hand and Blue positioned neatly beside the cutting board. Harley's eyes were open but vacant, like she was sleepwalking. When Samantha called her name, Harley blinked and looked around in confusion, asking what she was doing in the kitchen. That's when Samantha called her mother, who gave her 4 words of advice that probably saved Harley's life. Take it to church. The next day, while Harley was at school, Samantha drove straight to St. Michael's Cathedral and cornered Father Rodriguez. She told him everything about the voices, the drawings, the midnight knife incident. The priest didn't ask questions. He took Blue to the altar and placed it beneath a cloth, promising to handle the situation. When Harley discovered Blue was gone, she screamed so hard she burst a blood vessel in her eye. Then she locked herself in her room for 3 days without speaking. But the silence didn't last, darlings. Within a week, Samantha started hearing those conversations again. Same rhythm, same pauses, same chuckles in the dark. Blue was gone, but the voice that responded came from nowhere she could identify. She found Harley asleep one night, arms wrapped around empty air, lips moving in whispered conversation with something invisible. Harley's health deteriorated rapidly. She stopped eating real food, claiming Blue had told her she only needed natural nourishment. Her lunchbox came home filled with dirt and small stones. Her skin paled, her hair thinned, and she started waking up with scratch marks arranged in patterns Samantha didn't recognize. The therapist suggested disassociation. The doctor recommended psychiatric evaluation. But Samantha knew she was fighting something that didn't show up in medical textbooks. Now, Harley sits quietly in corners, flinching at bright lights and humming nursery rhymes in reverse. Sometimes she whispers to empty air about waiting for something to return. Samantha regretted buying her daughter that Labubu. Well, I guess some presents keep giving long after you want them to stop. Finally, let me tell you about Tyler Johnson, a TikTok reseller who thought he could monetize the supernatural. He learned that some audiences don't just watch, they feed. Tyler had built his entire brand on flipping limited releases. Sneakers, Funko Pops, Pokemon cards. If it was rare and profitable, he could sell it. So when the Labubu craze exploded across social media, he saw dollar signs instead of danger. Classic entrepreneurial blindness, darlings. The kind that turns people into horror movie victims who think they're the ones in control. He ordered a case of mystery boxes, set up his ring light, and went live on TikTok to cash in on the trend. His audience loved the unboxing content, and Tyler had the personality to make opening cardboard feel like winning the lottery. Box after box of grinning Labubu dolls with different colors and expressions. No rare variants, but decent sales to his chat members and solid engagement numbers. That's when he noticed something that should have been his first red flag. One of the dolls had shifted position between camera setups, just slightly, like it had turned its head while he wasn't looking. He blamed exhaustion and kept streaming. The second week brought bigger numbers and more dolls. Tyler's bedroom transformed into a Labubu showroom, with shelves lined with pastel-furred creatures all facing his setup. He made jokes about being their dad, created mock interviews with distorted voice filters, posed with them in social media content. His followers ate it up. Comments flooded in about the dolls watching him, moving slightly, whispering just out of audio range. Tyler leaned into the creepy factor, updating his bio to claim he was streaming from the most cursed Labubu collection in the US. Views doubled overnight, because nothing drives engagement like the hint of something supernatural. The third week, Tyler wasn't sleeping much, or eating much, but the donations were rolling in faster than ever, and his follower count was exploding. People weren't just watching for the unboxings anymore. They were invested in his spiral. That's when the dreams started. Sleep paralysis episodes where he'd wake up unable to move, staring at dolls that seemed to be standing instead of sitting. One night, he woke to find one positioned on his chest, just sitting there like a cat. It vanished when he blinked, but the indent in his bedsheet remained. By the fifth week, Tyler's appearance was deteriorating on camera. Dull skin, slurred speech, dark circles under his eyes. But his audience wasn't concerned. They were entertained. They wanted to see how far the spiral would go, and Tyler gave them a show, darlings. He started arguing with the dolls during streams, calling them by name, accusing them of plotting against him. His viewers assumed it was performance art. Off camera, it was very real. Campus security found him during his final live stream. Tyler was sitting in the middle of his room, surrounded by concentric circles of Labubu dolls, carving view statistics into his forearms with a box cutter. The chat exploded with reactions, some horrified, others convinced it was an elaborate hoax. Tyler looked directly into the camera, face streaked with tears and blood, and whispered about the algorithm being hungry and about how he would be everywhere they go. Then the feed went black. Tyler survived physically, but he never left the psychiatric facility. The doctors say his nervous system is intact, but his mind is elsewhere. He only speaks in phrases lifted from analytics dashboards, like his personality got replaced by engagement metrics. The dolls were donated to various thrift shops to be forgotten, but a few weeks later, multiple new TikTok accounts appeared, small channels streaming Labubu unboxings with the same setup, same phrases, same ring light angle Tyler once used. In the backgrounds of these streams, barely visible in the shadows, viewers started spotting a familiar face, still smiling, and still creating content. Well, my darlings, there you have it. 3 people, 3 approaches, 3 different ways the same story can end. Aaliyah thought she'd found a bargain and learned that some deals are too good to be true. Samantha bought love for her daughter and discovered that some gifts keep giving long after you want them to stop. Tyler tried to build an audience and found out that sometimes the content creates you. You see, darlings, Labubu dolls are very, very good at what they do, and what they do is replicate, spread, grow. Now, I'm not saying every person with a Labubu collection is doomed to supernatural stalking or possession. Most folks buy them, enjoy them, and move on with their lives like any other collectible. But some people Some people have that special combination of desperation, love, or ambition that opens doors better left closed. So if you've got one of those wide-eyed, sharp-toothed little creatures sitting nearby, take a moment to really look at it. Ask yourself if you found it or if it found you. And if you hear whispers at 3:08 a.m., well, don't say I didn't warn you, my precious cubs. Sweet dreams, everyone. And remember, not all toys are meant to be played with. Some are meant to play you.